was alone in the house that afternoon. Or at least I thought I was. My husband, Richard, had left early for a business trip. He wouldn't be back for days. The mansion felt too large, too quiet. Yet I didn't mind. I had grown accustomed to the silence, the luxurious loneliness of being the young, beautiful wife of a man who barely had time for me. I stood in front of my vanity, adjusting the silk robe that clung to my curves. The summer heat seeped through the windows, making my skin glisten. I ran a hand through my dark waves, sighing. The air was thick, charged with something I couldn't quite name. Then I felt it. A presence. Turning slowly, my breath caught in my throat when I saw him standing at the doorway. Leo, 19 years old, tall, lean, devastatingly handsome in that reckless, untamed way that made every girl in town whisper about him. But it wasn't just his looks that made my pulse race. It was the way he stared at me, like a predator watching its prey, like he had been waiting for this moment. You shouldn't be here, I said, though my voice betrayed the weakness of my resolve. Leo smirked, stepping into the room. Did you think you were alone? His voice was deep, smooth, dripping with something dark and knowing. My throat went dry. Your father isn't here. He finished for me, eyes dragging over my body, the silk robe barely covering my skin. But I am. A shiver ran down my spine. He took another step forward, then another, until he was close, too close. I could smell the faint scent of his cologne, the heat of his body pressing against mine without even touching. You're playing a dangerous game, I whispered. His hand reached out, fingers tracing the edge of my robe. Am I? Before I could protest, before I could even think, he moved. One swift motion. His hands gripping my wrists, pushing me against the vanity. The impact made the perfume bottles rattle, but I barely noticed. My pulse pounded in my ears. Leo. He leaned in, his breath hot against my cheek. Tell me you haven't thought about it, he murmured. Tell me you haven't noticed the way I look at you, the way I want you. My nails dug into his arms. This is wrong. Then stop me. He tilted my chin up, forcing me to look at him. His dark eyes burned with something I had seen before but always ignored. Desire. Hunger. Possession. My lips parted, a protest on the tip of my tongue. But the moment his mouth brushed against mine, the words dissolved into nothing. Leo didn't kiss me gently. It was deep, demanding, raw. His hand slid down, gripping my waist, pulling me flush against him. I gasped against his lips, the silk of my robe slipping over my skin as he tugged at it. Tell me to stop, he said again, voice rough, dangerous. But I didn't. I couldn't. My body betrayed me, pressing against him instead of pulling away. My fingers tangled in his dark hair, my breath coming in short, desperate gasps. You drive me insane, he groaned, his lips trailing down my neck, teeth grazing my skin. I've wanted you for so long. Leo, I whimpered, but it wasn't a protest anymore. His hand slid lower, over the curve of my hips, beneath the fabric that barely covered me. My head fell back against the vanity, a moan slipping past my lips as his fingers teased, explored. See, he murmured, his voice a low growl. You want this too. I should have pushed him away. I should have stopped this before it went too far. But it was already too late. Leo's hands were still on me, his fingers burning through my skin like fire. My mind screamed at me to stop this madness, to shove him away before we crossed a line that could never be undone. But my body, my traitorous, aching body, refused to listen. He lifted me effortlessly, settling me onto the vanity, his lips devouring mine in a kiss so deep it left me breathless. His fingers slid along my bare thighs, spreading heat through my veins, making my pulse hammer against my ribs. This is insane, I gasped, my voice barely above a whisper. Leo chuckled, his breath hot against my skin. Insane, he repeated, tracing slow, deliberate circles against the sensitive flesh of my inner thigh. But you're not stopping me. I gripped the edges of the vanity, my nails digging into the wood. He was right. I wasn't stopping him. I wasn't pushing him away. I was trembling, anticipation coiling inside me like a tightly wound spring. His lips found the pulse at my neck, kissing, biting, making me arch against him. My silk robe had long since fallen open, leaving me almost bare beneath him. His hands roamed, exploring every inch of skin, memorizing every reaction. God, you're beautiful, he murmured, his voice filled with reverence and hunger. A moan escaped me as his mouth traveled lower, his hands gripping my hips, pulling me closer. The air between us was electric, charged with something dark, dangerous, and utterly intoxicating. Then, a noise. The sharp sound of a car pulling into the driveway. Panic shot through me like ice water, dousing the fire that had consumed me only moments ago. My hands flew to Leo's chest, shoving him back as I scrambled to pull my robe closed. Shit! I hissed. My breath ragged, my heart slamming against my ribs. Leo didn't move. He stood there watching me, his chest rising and falling with each heavy breath. His lips were swollen, his dark eyes filled with unfulfilled desire. Go, I whispered harshly. Now. A slow smirk curled his lips. Scared sweetheart. I glared at him. Leo, I swear to God. Relax. He leaned in one last time, brushing a lingering kiss against my throat. I'll see you soon. And then he was gone, slipping out of the room, just as I heard the front door open. I pressed a hand to my chest, trying to steady my racing heart. What the hell had I just done? I had let my stepson touch me, kiss me. I had moaned beneath his hands. A wave of guilt crashed over me, but it was drowned out by something far more dangerous. Desire. I could still feel his fingers on my skin, his breath against my neck. God help me, I wanted more. I stood there trembling, trying to catch my breath. The sound of footsteps echoed from the front of the house, each step making my heart pound faster. Richard was home. I quickly adjusted my silk robe, pulling it tightly around me, as if it could shield me from the guilt that was already creeping in. My hands were shaking as I tried to smooth my hair, my mind racing. What had I just done? I had let Leo, my stepson, touch me, kiss me, and I hadn't stopped him. Worse, I had wanted it. The front door opened and Richard's voice called out, "Honey, I'm home." My stomach churned. I forced a smile and walked toward the foyer, trying to appear calm. Richard stood there, his suit slightly wrinkled from the trip, his briefcase in hand. He looked tired but smiled warmly when he saw me. "Welcome back," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. He leaned in to kiss me on the cheek, and I froze for a moment before forcing myself to relax. His lips felt cold compared to Leo's, and the guilt surged again. "How was your trip?" I asked, trying to distract myself. "Exhausting," he sighed, setting his briefcase down. "But productive. I missed you." "I missed you too," I lied, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. The next few days were a blur. Richard was busy catching up on work, and I found myself avoiding him, retreating into the solitude of the mansion. But solitude was no longer peaceful. Every corner of the house seemed to remind me of Leo, his presence, his touch, his words. I tried to push him out of my mind, but it was impossible. His smirk, his dark eyes, the way he had looked at me, it haunted me. I told myself it was wrong, that it could never happen again, but my body betrayed me. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt his hands on me, his lips against my skin. Leo, on the other hand, seemed unfazed. He acted as if nothing had happened, his demeanor cool and casual whenever we crossed paths. But I could feel his eyes on me, watching, waiting. It was as if he knew the power he had over me, and he was enjoying it. One evening, Richard announced that he had to leave again for another business trip. My heart sank. I didn't want to be alone in the house with Leo, but I couldn't say anything without raising suspicion. "I'll only be gone for a couple of days," Richard said, kissing me goodbye. "Take care of yourself." As soon as he left, the tension in the house became unbearable. I tried to stay in my room, but the silence was suffocating. I wandered into the library, hoping to distract myself with a book, but I couldn't focus. Then I heard footsteps behind me. "You've been avoiding me." Leo's voice came low and smooth. I turned to face him, my heart racing. "Leo, we can't do this. It's wrong." He stepped closer, his eyes locked on mine. "Is it? Or are you just scared?" I backed away, but he followed, his presence overwhelming. "This isn't a game, Leo. We could ruin everything." "Maybe I don't care," he said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Maybe I just want you." His words sent a shiver down my spine. I wanted to push him away, to tell him to stop, but I couldn't. My body betrayed me again, leaning into him instead of pulling away. The next morning, I woke up feeling more conflicted than ever. I knew I had to end this before it went too far, but I didn't know how. Leo was like a drug, intoxicating and dangerous, and I was addicted. I decided to confront him, to put an end to this madness once and for all. I found him in the garden, sitting on a bench, his dark hair tousled by the wind. "We need to talk," I said, my voice firm. He looked up at me, a smirk playing on his lips. "About what?" "About us," I said, sitting down beside him. "This has to stop, Leo. It's wrong and it's dangerous." He leaned back, his eyes studying me. "You keep saying it's wrong, but you haven't stopped me." "Not really." I opened my mouth to protest, but he cut me off. "You want this as much as I do," he said, his voice low and intense. "You're just too scared to admit it." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. He was right. I was scared of the consequences, scared of what this meant for me, for Richard, for everything. But I was also scared of how much I wanted him. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. I knew I had to make a choice, to either end this once and for all, or to give in to the desire that was consuming me. But as I closed my eyes, all I could see was Leo, his smirk, his dark eyes. The way he had looked at me like I was the only thing that mattered. And I knew deep down that I was already lost. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions: guilt, desire, fear, and a strange, intoxicating thrill that I couldn't shake. Leo's presence in the house became both a torment and a temptation. Every glance, every word, every accidental brush of his hand against mine sent shivers down my spine. I tried to avoid him, to distance myself, but it was futile. He was everywhere, and I was drawn to him like a moth to a flame. One evening, after Richard had left for yet another business trip, I found myself alone in the living room, staring into the fireplace. The flames danced and flickered, casting shadows on the walls, but they couldn't warm the cold emptiness inside me. I felt lost, torn between my loyalty to Richard and the undeniable pull I felt toward Leo. "You're thinking too much." Leo's voice broke the silence, startling me. I turned to see him leaning against the doorway, his arms crossed, a smirk playing on his lips. He was dressed casually, his shirt slightly unbuttoned, revealing a glimpse of his chest. My breath caught in my throat. "What do you want, Leo?" I asked, my voice trembling despite my attempt to sound firm. He stepped closer, his eyes never leaving mine. "You know what I want," he said, his voice low and smooth. "And I think you want it too." I shook my head, trying to deny it, but the words wouldn't come. He was right, and I hated myself for it. "This is wrong," I whispered, more to myself than to him. "It's not wrong if it feels right," he countered, closing the distance between us. His hand reached out, brushing a strand of hair from my face, and I froze. His touch was electric, sending a jolt of heat through my body. I wanted to pull away, to run, but I couldn't. My body betrayed me, leaning into his touch instead. "Leo, we can't," I said, but my voice lacked conviction. He smirked, his eyes dark with desire. "You keep saying that, but your body tells a different story." Before I could protest, his lips were on mine, and I was lost. The kiss was intense, passionate, and everything I had been trying to resist. My mind screamed at me to stop, but my body responded eagerly, my hands tangling in his hair as I kissed him back. It was wrong, so wrong, but it felt so right. The next morning, I woke up with a heavy heart and a guilty conscience. I had crossed a line, and there was no going back. Leo was still asleep beside me, his arm draped over my waist, and I felt a pang of regret. What had I done? I had betrayed Richard, the man who had given me everything, and for what? A moment of weakness? I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Leo, and went to the bathroom. I stared at my reflection in the mirror, hating the person staring back at me. How could I have let this happen? I had always prided myself on my self-control, but Leo had shattered it with ease. He had seen through my defenses, and I had let him. As the days went by, the tension between us grew. We tried to act normal around Richard, but it was impossible. Every glance, every touch, was charged with electricity, and I was constantly on edge. I knew it was only a matter of time before Richard noticed, and the thought terrified me. I loved Richard, but I was also drawn to Leo in a way I couldn't explain. It was a dangerous game, and I was playing with fire. One night, after Richard had gone to bed, Leo cornered me in the kitchen. "We need to talk," he said, his voice serious. I nodded, knowing that we couldn't keep avoiding the inevitable. "This can't continue," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "It's too dangerous." Leo's eyes softened, and he reached out to take my hand. "I know," he said, "but I can't stay away from you. I've tried, but I can't." His words sent a pang of guilt through me. I knew I should push him away, but I couldn't. I was just as addicted to him as he was to me. "What are we going to do?" I asked, my voice trembling. Leo sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know," he admitted. "But I do know that I can't lose you." His words were both a comfort and a curse. I knew that we were playing with fire, but I couldn't bring myself to walk away. The next few weeks were a blur of stolen moments and guilty secrets. We were careful, but the risk was always there. I knew that we were living on borrowed time, but I couldn't bring myself to care. Leo had awakened something in me that I hadn't known existed, and I was powerless to resist it. But as the days turned into weeks, the guilt began to eat away at me. I knew that I was betraying Richard, and the thought was unbearable. I loved him, but I was also drawn to Leo in a way that I couldn't explain. It was a dangerous game, and I was playing with fire. One evening, after Richard had gone to bed, Leo and I found ourselves alone in the living room. The tension between us was palpable, and I knew that we were on the brink of something dangerous. "We need to stop this," I said, my voice trembling. Leo nodded, his eyes filled with regret. "I know," he said, "but I can't." His words were both a comfort and a curse. I knew that we were playing with fire, but I couldn't bring myself to walk away. As the days turned into weeks, the guilt began to eat away at me. I knew that I was betraying Richard, and the thought was unbearable. I loved him, but I was also drawn to Leo in a way that I couldn't explain. It was a dangerous game, and I was playing with fire. But as much as I tried to resist, I knew that I was already lost. Leo had awakened something in me that I hadn't known existed, and I was powerless to resist it. The weight of my guilt became unbearable. Every smile Richard gave me felt like a dagger to my heart, and every stolen moment with Leo left me more conflicted than before. I knew I couldn't keep living this double life, but I didn't know how to end it. Leo had become an addiction, a dangerous one, and I was spiraling out of control. One evening, after Richard had gone to bed, I found myself alone in the garden, staring at the moon. Its cold, distant light seemed to mock me, a reminder of the chaos I had created. "You're out late." Leo's voice came from behind me, soft but piercing. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. "We need to stop this," I said, my voice trembling. "It's destroying me." Leo stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. "It's destroying me too," he admitted, his voice raw with emotion. "But I can't stay away from you." His words broke me. I turned to face him, tears streaming down my face. "This is wrong, Leo. We're hurting Richard and we're hurting ourselves. I can't keep doing this." He reached out, wiping a tear from my cheek. "I know," he whispered, "but I love you." His confession shattered me. I loved him too, but I couldn't let myself admit it. "We have to end this," I said, my voice firm despite the pain in my chest. Leo nodded, his eyes filled with sorrow. "If that's what you want," he said, "but I'll never stop loving you." His words were both a comfort and a curse. I knew that walking away from him would be the hardest thing I'd ever done, but I also knew it was the only way to protect Richard and salvage what was left of my conscience. The next morning, I woke up with a heavy heart. Leo was gone, and the house felt emptier than ever. Richard noticed my somber mood and asked if I was okay. I forced a smile and told him I was just tired. He kissed my forehead and told me to rest, his kindness only deepening my guilt. I spent the day in a haze, trying to distract myself with mundane tasks, but my mind kept drifting back to Leo. I missed him already, and the thought of never seeing him again was unbearable. But I knew I had made the right choice. Days turned into weeks, and life slowly returned to normal, or at least as normal as it could be. Richard was oblivious to the storm that had raged in my heart, and I was grateful for that. But the scars remained, a constant reminder of my betrayal. I tried to focus on rebuilding my relationship with Richard, but it was hard. Every time he touched me, I thought of Leo, and the guilt would come rushing back. I knew I didn't deserve Richard's love, but I was determined to earn it back. One evening, as I was preparing dinner, Richard came home with a bouquet of roses. "For you," he said, handing them to me with a smile. "You've been so strong lately. I'm proud of you." His words brought tears to my eyes. I didn't deserve his kindness, but I was grateful for it. "Thank you," I whispered, burying my face in the roses to hide my tears. Richard wrapped his arms around me, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, I could rebuild what I had broken. But the past has a way of catching up with you. One afternoon, as I was cleaning the house, I found a letter tucked under the couch. It was from Leo. My hands trembled as I opened it, and my heart sank as I read his words. He had left town, but he wanted me to know that he would always love me. His letter was filled with regret and longing, and it broke my heart all over again. I knew I had to let him go, but it was harder than I had imagined. As the months passed, the pain slowly began to fade. Richard and I grew closer, and I started to believe that we could move past what had happened. But the scars remained, a constant reminder of my mistakes. I knew I would never forget Leo, but I also knew that I had made the right choice. Richard was my husband, and I owed it to him to be the wife he deserved. The final chapter of this story is not a happy one, but it's a necessary one. Love is complicated, and sometimes the right choice is the hardest one to make. I had made my choice, and I would live with the consequences. But as I looked at Richard, sleeping peacefully beside me, I knew that I had made the right decision. Love isn't always about passion. Sometimes it's about loyalty, commitment, and doing the right thing, even when it hurts.